Welcome back to Deep Thoughts. It's going to be a nice, brisk, upper 50s day here while I do this show in short sleeves. I find the jacket's just a little bit much. We'll see if we can tough it out here. As you can tell, we're going to talk about talents. And I know that, again, when I pick a subject that's sort of loose in concept, and especially one you don't talk about that often with anyone else in your lifetime, you tend to not be attracted to the subject matter, right? But this is what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about sort of the beginning thoughts towards talents and where we think we get them and whether or not we think we have anything that might be helping us out getting talents. We're going to talk about talents that you acquire through mentorship, talents that you acquire through an educational process, and talents that you simply manifest because you're bored, but you're interested in something else in life. And then we're going to talk about the trials and tribulations of actually getting that talent once you decide that that's a talent that you want. And there's mechanisms and there's methodologies of which all successful people in the world have mastered what I'm about to tell you. But if you're by yourself, you, for whatever reason, even if you have brothers and sisters, you're isolated, you're an only child, you're way past the stage of living with your parents, and you're on your own. And these talents are the difference between you making a life that you love and a life that you don't like. And I want to give you the gift of being able to enjoy what you do. And I hope it goes without saying that anything I tell you as an adult, if you have children, you're going to have children, or you know someone you can influence who's a kid, this goes for every single one of those people. I'm bringing you the most wisdom that I have ever acquired in being talented myself and watching others with their amazing skills and having interviewed them and talked to them. But I've mentored tons of people in my lifetime. So I've dealt with all forms of resistance when it comes to a talent. From the kids that are like, sure, man, I'll do anything that you say and have instantaneous success, or the people that fight and just keep telling me that they don't have what they need to make it happen. And I've busted down the dam of every one of those levels of resistance. So let's get started. There's something called natural talent. And the concept of natural talent, which I'm going to tell you is, in some cases, there is natural talent, I think, and then there's some things that are not natural talent. When you see people that are totally talented in the world, you see them at the peak of usually their skill set. That's how you were able to see them in the first place. If you see your favorite musician, your favorite actor, your favorite whatever, sports person, you're seeing them because they have reached an apex of talent that got them on a camera in front of you. So by the time most of us saw Mike Tyson fight in a ring, he had already perfected boxing. He just hadn't fought everyone. He hadn't grown physically up to his maximum apex as a human being and had the best fights matched up to him. But I got to see him in the Olympics on TV because he had reached a level of skill set that he got to that point. Some of you would hate me using Mike Tyson as an intro, but he's a good example. Another one is Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods is this amazing golfer. I think most people know his past. Tiger Woods' father forced him to play golf from a very young age. And, of course, he has this quote-unquote natural talent because his father forced him at such a young age he knows nothing else. Same thing with Mozart. Mozart was forced by his father to play the piano. And, of course, all kinds of things can happen when you start thinking a subject so young that your whole paradigm of existence is within that subject matter. You start to see things differently than everyone else. Mozart got tired of the mathematical models of Beethoven and Bach and started incorporating emotion and soothing curves into what he did. Natural talent, I think, only exists this way. Your family has consistently, over hundreds of years, engaged in a particular talent. They all were musicians. They thought music mathematically. Perhaps they mastered piano and some other instruments. And when you're born, you get a copy of their genetic matrix. And because they infuse their matrix with talent, with acquired knowledge, right? You are born with a predisposition to understand that pattern. But there's a got you with that. Some of you don't know who your parents are. And then you can't ask the question of what your natural talents would be. You just got to feel it out. And that can actually be probably pretty fun. But the other one is that man gets off on new patterns, not on old patterns. So if you're born with a super predisposition towards something, but you're looking for a new frontier, even though the piano is easy and fun, it's not a new pattern. And so there's no chemical dumps related to that activity that is like exploring the ocean like Magellan. So sometimes it goes in and out. A lot of times people say that the every other generation of kid that you have, or every other generation of kids, is like the one two back. So your grandparents are going to be like your children. You are going to be like their kids. And I think this ebb and flow might simply be something that relates to, if a pattern tries to repeat itself twice, the second generation gets bored of the pattern because their parents engaged in that pattern. But by the time they have kids, they're raised with the opposite pattern. And so the one that they're predispositioned to, which is the grandparents, kicks in and becomes really interesting. That's just my observation of my belief system, that what drives us is new half the time. Unless we grow up in a very insecure world, and then patterns repeating forever are what turn us on, because it means safety. As long as everything's safe here, I don't ever want it to change. I want to be in my backyard forever smoking a cigar. Hey, it's not a bad idea. But if you believe someone has a natural talent and you don't think you do, which I guarantee you do, then you may not engage new things quite as efficiently and as intensely as you should. And you should. What I like to tell my students when I lecture is that you're all here because you have amazing genetics. And this is not a hoorah thing for me to you to make you feel good just because I walked in the room. It's absolutely scientifically true. And it doesn't matter how we got here, what system of belief you want to believe in as to how man was created or whatever. I guarantee you, there's something in your face that makes someone really attracted to you. There's something about your body type that makes someone else really attracted to you. That's the basics, right? Someone loves every one of our looks. And there's probably someone who dislikes all of our looks, right? But there's always someone out there for everyone. And in order to get this far, because remember, 150 years ago, the world was fairly barbaric, in terms of like plumbing that moved crap out of our house, not that old. Printing press, not that old. Even if we want to go back to the time of Christ, that's 2,000 years out of a few million years. So man was utterly brutal on man for tens of thousands of years back. And the only thing that kept your genome going, the stuff that you look at in the mirror, is undeniably part of this equation that is mankind, are talents and know-how and ingenuity and perseverance and resilience. Every one of us knows how to fight. We do. Whether or not we ever do it, we know how to do it. And the recessive gene of such a thing will pop out if we should need it. That's one of our hidden talents. Because every single person on planet Earth, 150 years ago, had to hunt for food. You had to get up and hunt every single day, whether or not you ate a squirrel because you're crappy at hunting, or you ate a venison deer because you're great at hunting. Every single one of us have all these recessed talents. And there's a lot of arguments to say that anything man has ever accomplished is inside of us, because we've crossbred so much. My family has Mongol blood in it from Asia. So when Genghis Khan moved in over Asia, he created a lot of the German-looking double-lid eyes that Germans have. I have an uncle that was the guy who mentored me like crazy. He's got almond eyes. So I've got genetics from all over the world. So do you. I'm no better than you, and you're no better than me. We're actually just trying to figure this game out. So let's get into how the vision of natural talents might hobble you right from the very beginning. How many times have you thought about natural talent in someone and then you get discouraged? You're like, damn it, that dude or that chick has natural talent. I can't do that. And you think that there's somehow this natural talent was a switch inside that individual. They were able to have no talents, flip a natural talent switch, and boom, they're instantaneously talented. Under no circumstance has that ever been true with anyone I've ever met in my life. Right? The only thing I've ever seen online is a few people that are blind that play the piano instantaneously. It's those weird anomalies. But I can tell you, like Tiger Woods, Mozart, Mike Tyson, those guys I just mentioned, they all had to work their asses off to get as talented as they were. They simply just did the hard work, right? There's a great definition of luck in the world, and it's called hard work. Be aware of it, because that's the realm we're about to go into. Luck is mixing opportunity with talent that you work really hard to create. That's luck. You were lucky to be in the right place at the right time. The right place that the opportunity was available, and the right time that you had the talents to take advantage of the opportunity. That's how that works. I followed the musician Prince for a long time in my lifetime, to about the mid-'90s, and I was totally built out of him. But what I studied with that guy was that he was punished by being locked in the basement of his house. And his father was this incredible jazz pianist, and his mother was a singer. So he grew up in a kind of a musical household, but they never really invited him to the gig of music. They just lived around him, and they quickly divorced when he was young. But they were close enough that you got to see him all the time. So his father would lock him in the basement as his punishment, is grounding him, a timeout in the basement. And he found a piano down there, and he eventually just started playing the piano down there, and that's where it all started. He was also rumored as banging on pots and pans, but what kid doesn't do that? I guess he's a badass drummer. When James Brown said that Prince never missed a beat, that's amazing, because no one busted a drummer's balls harder than James Brown. Okay, and he made some of the most complex, precise beats on earth, right? But this guy practiced and practiced and practiced as a kid. There's stories about him in junior high and high school. He started his first band at 13, and his buddies and his friends went off and ran off with the stereotypical let's goof off childhood, which a lot of us did. And Prince would stay home learning how to play the guitar, the bass, the drums, the piano, / keyboards, and he'd write all this music. So by the age of 17, he'd come up with this song called Soft and Wet, and it went on the air. And then he got his 4U album and worked on that for a year and a half. And people could see he had this phenomenal talent at an extremely young age. And not only did he have phenomenal talent, but being a recluse somehow and seeing society from sort of an odd perspective, he was able to write lyrics that really were deep by 18 years old. They did lie about his age, saying he was 2 years younger than he was, I think, when they first signed up their first contracts on him. But he's born in 58. But when you follow a guy like that, it's hard to look at him on stage. And I've seen him play almost every single instrument one way or another, right? It's hard to look at a guy like that and say he just was born to do that. He just is so unbelievably over everyone else in terms of talent that dude is way beyond us, you and me. He's better than all of us. I'd say the only thing he's got on us was he took all of his spare time and he sacrificed a lot of social interaction. He sacrificed a lot of social development. And he sat in a room, in a basement, wherever, a studio, and he pounded on these instruments until he got really, really talented at what he did. And he had a good ear. He really understood, this is new, this is different, I'm going to do this, right? His first 3 albums, although each one of them have a milestone of being amazing, his 4th album, 1999, Controversy, he started to do things with the instruments that was a little bit different. By the 5th album, 1999, he had created a whole studio of sounds that no one had really put together. And everyone bites it now and steals it today, but back in that day, it was brand new, let me tell you. And so we were all kind of sitting there going, damn, this is some weird sounds coming out of the studio. And he made the whole album by himself in his house in Minnesota. It's good to mention these extreme cases. And I mentioned Prince because I want you to understand that there really is no difference between us and these folks except their dedication to do it and their willingness to find the time to do it. So let's get into how do we get these skills. Okay, because that's the difference between making it and not making it in many cases. And I'll say with the internet and YouTube alone, your excuse for not having mentorship and guidance is really non-existent. In terms of perseverance and people who support you, well, I'm going to hopefully give you some perspective on that to set your expectations correctly so that you can pick yourself up off the ground if you happen to fall on your face, right? Now, it used to be back in the day, we had apprentice. right? We had a master at something, and then we had you were an apprentice for that master. Usually a blacksmith, would have an apprentice for a little while, and eventually he or she learns everything, and then you get to do what you're going to do. Okay. We don't have that construct anymore at all in this world. At most, we have a mentor. And a mentor is simply that one that has far more talent than you. They may not be the best in the world at what they do, but they have enough to be really, really useful, and they have enough knowledge to make it a profession, meaning all the money that you need to live in life is derived from this talent that you want to have, right? A mentor is a very intimate thing. It's someone who is, giving you a time slot to show up. You build a rapport between that individual. They learn what you know and what you don't know. They learn your weaknesses in terms of how you're shooting yourself down or how you're getting stuck. And they go right for those little touch points and they pull you up and out of that problem. And they do it in an encouraging way when you need just a little bit of a push, but they also know tough love. And tough love is a huge one. And unfortunately, a lot of us are bred to be very weak. And so tough love doesn't work, I was raised with major tough love, and I love it. It's the shortest distance between 2 points to have someone just tell you what it's all about, tell you where you made a mistake. And you have the choice, and we're going to get into this, but you're going to have a choice to engage your emotional, I want a prize for being offended gear, and just hold back and go, okay, you just did me a favor. That's how you need to really view tough love. Okay. So mentorship is one way. We're going to go down that path in a second here. And I'm going to talk about some places where you might find mentors. And I'm just going to riff with mentors because I pursued my mentors personally, right? The other one is professional education, going to college, going to school, going to high school, junior high, college, extension courses, internet courses. It used to be you could take a course through the mail. I would say I'll put it this way, the people I know who have changed their lives by getting education on something as remote as a weekend workshop. My partner in the normal show, Kyle, we talked about on the show several times. He got tired. He ran his rock band Dr. No for a long time. He's a huge, Godzilla fan, special effects movie fan, just like any kid, and he just got a bug up his butt to go to a weekend workshop in his 20s, in his early 30s, and learn how to do special effects in a computer. And he went throughout the entire course, and then he worked 3 months to build a reel, which is a short movie of his skill set. He took the reel to the place Foundation Imaging, which was the company that actually created the Babylon 5 look. They said, this is pretty good, but do this, this, and this, and come back. So he's living in Ventura. He's driving to Burbank. For those of you who don't know, it's 1 hour one way, and it's not exactly the most comfortable drive on planet Earth. But he worked 3 more months on this thing, brought it back, got the job. His life has been completely different. He now has 2 Emmys for special effects. One for Firefly the movie and one for Battlestar Galactica the show. All right? That's him taking a weekend course. So when I come to you and I say this stuff works, I've seen it happen in my lifetime. Now, that's a really glamorous career he was able to create, but I've got friends of mine who I've worked with in the professional computer industry who put themselves through, IT weekend courses as well. Some of them go to these kind of auxiliary colleges like DeVry or the College of Phoenix, right? This stuff works. Or Texas Instruments, or is it Texas Instruments? It's the, I think it's, they have a course in the Midwest. I think it's really, really intense and serious. One of my buddies went there and got a 3-year degree, became the master scheduler at Amgen. He retired in his early 30s. Before that, we all were worried that the guy would not find anything that would pay the bills. It really looked like he was going to be down and out his whole life. One of those guys that kind of lives in his parents' house, He took us all by surprise, So then there is the most common one in this day and age, which is self-educating. You're at home. You feel it. Some of you are at home without kids, so you have a lot of freedom on your hands. Maybe even get technically bored because you have so much time on your hands. There's some of you that are married without children, so you have a more limited amount of time, but it's still quite intense. And then you have some of you have children. And some of you are beyond that point, but some of you have kids and you're worried about trying to find the time to do things. That's a little bit more complex, but it's probably one of the most exciting ways to learn stuff. But you have to be a pretty good self-motivator to pull it off. And again, I think if you actually are doing something that you love, that self-motivation is just evident. And it may be that you have to push through a certain membrane of boredom before you actually learn that that's something you do love. Okay? Now, those are the three. Let's go back to mentorship. First thing about getting a mentor is making sure that your mind's right to have a mentor. All these emergency vehicles. Something going on. Your mentor is usually very talented at what they do, and the last thing that they want to do is waste their time with anyone. Not everyone's a mentor, right? I've talked about it several times. I have a good friend, Sid Mead, who designed all these crazy movies that I love as a kid. Probably some that you love too. I thought that after I got close to him, I'd be able to tap him for how to paint, how to draw, how to do stuff. Now, he does paint in a watercolor called gouache, which is not watercolors like you had in grade school, but it's almost like it's like a acrylic, but it's made out of watercolors. But Sid's not a mentor. Sid is not, he'll comment on your portfolio and definitely give you as many comments as he can just verbally, but he's not a guy to sit down with you and say, this is how I do what I do. But he did make some DVD sets over the course of the time I've known him, and that's what I used to actually get the mentorship from him. When it was put into professional money-making capacity, he had it was motivating enough for him to figure out how he did what he did and put it in there. But I think prior to that DVD set out of the Noman Group, and there's 2 different sets he has, he didn't really think it through. You know, I'd ask him how to do something, and he'd just kind of tell me, and then that would be it. Like one comment, and that would be it. Now, other folks I met, I never thought they would be mentors, ever. I met one of my writing mentor. I usually don't say his name, just so this show's controversial. I don't want to taint anybody. Sid's okay with the show, listens to the show. But my writing mentor, I didn't know anything about the guy, what he did with his personal life, what he did for a living. I know he made one of the greatest movies I've ever seen in my life. It changed my life forever, and I learned that he was a writer, that he had been writing movies and movies after that. So I said, oh my God, I'm trying to get into film writing myself. I've written a couple things. Please help me. So in 2007, he, over the course of 3 months, I had to sort of prove my seriousness with him. And I had to write a few things and prove my talent to him and read his scripts and make comments on it. And I just kind of had to prove that I had essentially the base skill set to be an apprentice of him, sort of, right? It's a little bit different with writing because when you're an apprentice, you're trying to copy exactly what your mentor does, what the master does. In this particular case, let's go off and do your own thing. There's a bunch of vehicles coming by again. But the mentorship thing is all about making sure that you're prepared to not waste their time. And once you get serious, they're going to give you the time. Now, here's your to-do list to have a mentor. All right. Before you even look for one, maybe you already know one. Maybe it's your boss. Maybe it's your neighbor. Maybe it's your spouse. Who knows, right? You want to look at your schedule and you want to try to find some slots in your schedule. You're going to need slots to actually communicate with your mentor, whether it be electronically or face-to-face. And then you're going to need more slots than that to have your homework, to really work on what it is you're going to do. And you're going to need these slots no matter how you get your education. If you're going off for formal education, depending on what age you are, you might have to work an 8-hour day and then do your education afterwards. I think you all know that, right? But your mentor, you're going to have to treat with kid gloves, right? I mean, you're going to have to be really, really honorable towards their time frame. And it's the entitled kids of the generation that have a hard time engaging mentors because they put off and quaff this whole thing that well, of course you're supposed to teach me. Of course you're supposed to do this. Obviously, that's not the way it works. If you show disrespect to a mentor, you're gone. And you probably will never get that opportunity again. If you ever get a double opportunity with or a second chance with the mentor, that's a really nice person. Okay. Then you got to find your mentor. You have to physically find them in the real world, whether it be through electronic means of emailing folks, which is, depending on what you're doing, that may be effortless. If you're working in a creative realm, it might be dangerous to be shipping off scripts or something to someone that is in the same industry you're in. It depends on how well off they are, whether or not they might take your idea and run with it. Honestly, if my mentors ever took anything of mine and claimed it as their own, that would be an accolade and that I'd be so proud of until my deathbed, but they're far more talented than me. But you're going to want to go in, and you're going to want to let them know that that's sort of how you're positioning them in your life. You may have a casual relationship in your life. My mentor and I, we turn wood. We turn wood into these beautiful vessels. It's his talent that he shares with me, and we've cut down trees, and we've done all this crazy stuff, sweated our guts out, 90 degrees in the middle of summertime, cutting big avocado trees, and so we have a friendship, we have a connection, and we see the world from very similar eyes. He's several years older than me, so he can see him a little clearer, but he's just shy of about 15 years older than me. But we made friends, and then we started doing this other stuff. And the more he sees me continually try, because he doesn't give me homework or anything, he just talks to me about the construction of stories, the cultural implications of storylines in this day and age, the themes that actually work out, and then I run off and create stuff on my own, and then I bring him a fully finished script, and he knows that that's a really tough thing to do, and so he engages it. And sometimes he only reads the first 45 pages, and he goes, you know what, I kind of like it, but this, and this started making me not want to read it. And I'm like, fine, that's cool, so go back and I change it. And then once I get him to get to the end, then I know I've got a good thing going, right? But you may have to physically find the best mentors, and it's usually not someone that you don't know. It's usually someone you do know. Could be an uncle, an aunt, a friend. Again, could be a professor that you just simply approach on the outside. It depends. They're always unique. My first mentor really was probably my uncle with the video game thing. And he was also an illustrator. He was also like a martial arts guy. I mean, so it was crazy. This guy had this full spectrum of ability. And I was interested in everything he had to teach me. And the interesting thing was, it wasn't like he was my hero before he taught me all this stuff. He became my hero as a result of having taught me all this stuff. So it wasn't like he was my uncle that was like, oh my gosh, that's the uncle that, has a sidearm and spurs on his boots. It wasn't anything like that. It was just, that's my uncle. And, oh wow, he's teaching me all this stuff. Oh wow, look at all these great things that happened in my life because he taught me those things. All right. You get me. Formal education. Like I said, it depends on what age you are. I don't think I have too many young listeners. Hopefully you understand there's a parental discretion on this. But you got your middle schools, which used to be called junior highs, and you have your high schools. After that, now I'm going to put a footnote in here before we go off to college, which is what you were assuming. I went to probably about 2.5 years of college. I never graduated. Most of the skills I have in this world, I've acquired either before I graduated high school or through self-education afterwards, using mentors and using my own wherewithal. Probably at least 2/3 of the skills that I have, I taught myself. But that 1/3 that I got from my mentors, well, that one is pound for pound worth more, right? I'm just going to have to keep talking while this helicopter's flying over. We have some accident or something off to the side here. And of course, the helicopter thinks it can help by looking down. Obviously, college has its rewards. My caution with college is that it's so expensive right now, right? Your crappiest degree can run you $100,000. Starting your life off with $100,000 worth of debt, even if there's no interest in it, is something that is so significant and so debilitating that you really need to think it through as to whether or not you want to go to college anymore. The colleges have varying levels of actual education that's worth anything in the real world. They are absolutely cram-packed with degrees that are unemployable concepts. So I want to really push you into thinking about, if you're going to get into something that needs certification, you're going to need college to get the certification. But if you're going to go into something that you can get into by yourself without certification, and what's interesting is programmers have never needed certification in this world. And I almost thank the Lord that's the case, because colleges can't keep up with where the industry is. And so there's no way they can certify you without doing a shitty job doing it. All right? So most things in life you can pretty much teach yourself. Go get some formal education, take seminars, right? Take workshops. Do anything online you possibly can. Remember, YouTube, you search at the top of YouTube for anything you're looking to do. How to fix a car. You could have a certain car year, make, and model, and you need to fix the serpentine belt, and you'll find a video on how to do it from someone who filmed their car exactly like yours doing it, right? How to draw an eyeball. You can't go, okay, how do I how do I do open heart surgery? But I'm sure there's a video that has that on there too, right? But again, some things you need certifications, so you're going to have to get your PhD and work at it that way. Now there's self-education. At no point in time has it been better than right now to be a self-educator. I have a whole episode on self-education. It's way, way back at the beginning, probably in the first 10. I don't remember which one it is, but that's a whole thing on getting self-educated and the disciplines around getting self-educated. So if that's something you want to do, please go look at that episode as well. But you have more books now on things than ever before. And you have more videos that are free. You have subscription services that you can subscribe to learn how to do things, right? You can learn how to be a Pixar animator by Pixar animators. I think the group I work with Bobby Beck from Pixar. He started animationmentor.com. I'm pretty sure it's still out there. It's a full accredited college course on how to be an animator, except that the guys who founded the company are ILM guys, Pixar guys, and a ton of other super duper talents that now the teachers in there, if it's still going. I'm pretty sure it's going still. The college, the Noman College of Creativity. It's an online DVD download thing where you just watch things like Netflix, and it's all incredibly, incredibly dense. I mean, the amount of talent you can get out of the Noman School is ridiculous, okay? So that's another, it's way cheaper than the $100,000 debt for a crappy career, for a crappy degree that doesn't go anywhere, right? The other misnomer is that you can get a degree in something that doesn't really count and somehow someone's going to employ you for it. I have seen this in my lifetime, okay? It used to be that a history degree was a degree that would get you into becoming a CEO. I think that's really interesting. I think the first CEO I worked for in the Bay Area, he had a PhD in history, I think. One of them had a philosophy degree. And yet they became the CEOs of these companies. Well, doesn't a CEO have to have mathematics and business? Oh, well, apparently not, right? They want to know that you can think right. So if you're trying to prove that you can think right, okay, you can either make your own YouTube channel and make 500 hours worth of videos like I'm doing, or you can go to college and simply get a degree in a piece of paper. Now, we talk all the time about how the degrees are full of bad information and can pollute your mind and restrict your mind, get you more left brain instead of right brain, all those things, right? So you have to weigh where you're going to school. I'm in a circle of people that go to Harvard. None of my family members went to Harvard. But what we're told about Harvard is that it's more difficult to get in the school than it is to graduate the school. And that the knowledge once you go in the school is sort of this protected, coveted, this is the way the world really works, knowledge. So anytime you get a degree from Harvard, you're getting in from a perspective that actually applies to life. Plus the alumni is phenomenal, so you can get jobs unlike any other college that's not at that caliber, right? So again, self-education is fantastic at this point in history. Again, there's book sites out there. You can get all kinds of stuff for free on the internet. There's this website I'm just going to tell you about if you're a technical person. And I have checked this out with publishers. I've actually contacted friends of mine that actually wrote books that are up there. I'm sure there's some angle where it's illegal, but I've contacted these publishers, and they haven't replied to me to say, yes, this is all illegal, don't do this. They don't reply to me at all, and I'm contacting the front door. A buddy of mine who wrote several books up there hasn't said anything to me. But the book website is it-ebooks.info. it-ebooks.info. There must be $400,000 or $500,000 worth of books up there, and you can download them all for free as PDFs. My only request to you is if you end up using a book to change your life, please go buy it. Either buy the paperback or buy the electronic version from whatever device you're using, iPhone or Android. Give the people the money if you happen to use the book. That's my policy. And I've done that. I've actually read a book halfway through, totally changed the way I was programming a particular language, bought the book on iTunes, and I never read the book again because it was so well written in the first half that I changed my career forever. And it's utterly been able to simplify my code, make me look like a much better professional. And so there's a little Chotsky for you. Now let's talk about the kiss of death, because I'm going to redefine to you a few words that you've heard your whole life that mess with you, right? When you try to do something in the world that's new, especially a talent, you have this duality of chemicals clashing together inside your mind, right? You have the utter euphoria of, won't it be amazing after I learn how to do this thing extremely well? And you start to see your future on this right side of your brain. You start to see the future that will be your life if you succeed, right? And then you have the left side of your brain, which is sort of bringing that cynical terror that what if you don't do it? What if you fail? What if you can't become this talented? And it's the naysayer. What I want to tell you is you need to completely ignore this, because if there was ever a moment in your life where you had an angel on one shoulder and a devil on the other shoulder, your right brain's going to give you the angel reality thoughts, and the devil on your left shoulder is going to give you all the cynical lies about the process. This is probably the most important part of the video, and there was no way to me to get here until I explained all the other stuff. In learning a talent, all right? Now, there are some things that are physically related to talents, and so you might, like I've always said, this 5-foot Asian girl is not going to become a 350-pound defensive tackle in the NFL. So, as long as that is not what you're trying to do, okay? You're not trying to do something physically you can't do, which is a very tiny sliver of anything in life, right? Talents are usually pretty agnostic to your physical state. But even if your talent is going to be a physical thing, I'm going to tell you that you can probably get it in most cases. And this is, again, an obvious extreme, like I just gave you. All right. There really isn't a reality of failure when you're trying to gain skills to do something. You never really ever have failure. Failure really has one definition, and you can only fail one time in your life per skill. And I'm going to tell you how that happens. And then you're going to realize that to actually accomplish true failure is actually pretty darn tough if you're serious. Failure is the day you stop trying to gain the talent that you want, and you never ever come back to try again. That is the only day you truly fail at that talent. If you try to gain some understanding and you're not getting it, that's not failing. If you try to actually execute against the talent, but you didn't get it to your liking, or it just didn't simply work out, you didn't fail. All right? Every single time you move into your talent, whether or not you achieve the milestone that you're looking for or not, you have learned something extremely valuable. Like I said in a couple episodes back, Thomas Edison going after the light bulb 10,000 times. Would anyone say that he failed completely at 9,000 or 9,500 or 2,500? No. He was gaining the knowledge to get to the 10,000 mark. And whether or not that story is true or not, who gives a shit, right? Once you get in, you're always learning. You're always learning. I've written some crappy films in my lifetime. I've put films that started off ridiculously crappy at the beginning and then got really, really hot and amazing in the middle, and I handed it to people I shouldn't have handed it to. I should have gone back and rewritten the beginning to match the middle, and I wouldn't have lost certain opportunities in my life, right? But the entire time, as long as I look at what didn't come out correctly, it's not a failure. It's just me looking at it and going, wow, that skill set is not up to the level it needs to be for me to gain this ultimate goal that I have. And the beautiful thing is that a talent doesn't just pay off with one goal. That's the illusion we give ourselves. So let's say you want to become a filmmaker. All right. You think, well, all I want to do is create one film. That's sort of how you put that in your brain, but you're not going to create one film. You're going to create tons of films. You want to be a writer, you're not going to create one script. You're going to create tons of scripts. You want to be a musician, you're not going to write one great song. You're going to write 1,000,000 great songs. Not one album, multiple albums. You feel me, right? So that is the formula in your brain that you need to break. There isn't one end, light at the end of the tunnel, but there is a moment of success which will make the future successes slightly less difficult. Now, George Lucas made Star Wars. Star Wars just came out this weekend, right? If it was easy to make another Star Wars, he would have made another Star Wars, but he never did. He wrote and directed the first one. He wrote the next two. Some other people directed Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. it died off. Right? I don't know why it died off, because we were ready for the prequels right away. He waits 27 years or something like that, or maybe no, it's like 20 years, sorry. And he comes out with the first 3. And they didn't do that well. We all know that we were glad to see the franchise back, but the way it was told was crazy. Wasn't easy. Then he wasn't really good with criticism. And so he was like, here, Disney, you take it. You've been giving me $4.5 billion. And hopefully Disney knocked it out of the park. I haven't seen it. Actually, it hasn't released yet. It'll be next Friday. Keep forgetting. So you need to think about when you're in the midst of it all, because this is where you feel the most risk to your heart. You feel the most insecure when you're getting into something new. And, there are a couple things I can say. It is okay to try a particular hobby out or skill. And don't think that me calling what you want to do in life a hobby as a minimizing word that means you're never going to be professional at it. Every professional skill starts as a hobby. Hobby is where you play and there's not a lot of pressure on you to deliver because it's not your career yet, right? If you want to be a comedy writer for some sitcom, well, you're going to play around at home at first and no one's going to be telling you what to do, right? So then on top of that, when you get the job, you have an executive staff that is up your butt constantly. And it may actually go from being fun in your household to being unfun in a professional world. But the number one obstacle when you're in the midst of your own talent building process is this constant measurement of whether or not you're succeeding or failing. Because that is the layman's methodology of looking at what you're doing. And I'm trying to tell you that failure isn't really part of the mix. It's not really part of the process. And honestly, I think that if you were to get into a particular skill, test it out, and it's not what you want in life, walking away from it with an educated opinion about it not being what you want is not failure at all. It is simply an educated decision to go off and do something else with your time. Okay? Don't beat yourself up when what you're trying to do is tough and it starts to, become something that's doesn't really have a reward second to second. But that's the next part of what I want to get into. We get euphorically blown away by a project. Okay? Now, what I'm going to give you is what I teach my students about the phases of psychology in any type of project that you do. Okay? If a project has a 100% life cycle, then there are percentages of transformation in the way you think about the time that you spend. And if you know these cycles, then it really helps you out when it comes time to executing anything that you're doing, especially gaining a skill / talent. There's what I call the Fun 40. The Fun 40 is that first part where you're conceptualizing what you want to do. You don't actually have to do any work in the first 40%. You're simply conceptualizing what could be done if you did this thing. It's your project concept. It's the what you got to do to make it happen. You're getting all your pieces and parts put together. When I do software, it's usually how great the software will be once it's finished. That's the amazing feeling I have. Then these are the technologies I got to develop. These are the modules I have to develop. And I start going out and design. But I'm not writing any code yet. I'm not doing any interface design. It's all just theoretical in my mind. Once I cross over that 41% mark, it starts getting tough because I have to actually do the work. All right? Then I have the next 50%. The next 50% is where most of the work occurs. This is where you start to feel like you're going to the gym every day with whatever you're doing, whether you're a painter, a writer, whatever the hell you do, a car mechanic, anything, a chef, anything. You start to have to actually do the tasks. And this is where we sort of separate the men from the boys, right? The women from the girls. And you have to remember everything that I told you. If you have a tough day, all right, a couple things that people never usually tell you. If you had a schedule, which is usually, they say failing to plan is planning to fail, right? A goal without a date is a dream. Those are great little catchphrases I would like to say to you. But at the same time, you want to keep some sort of mantra on yourself to keep going. You have to understand that taking a day off is okay. Taking a week off is okay. I just finished a script. I rewrote it twice. I mailed it to my first band of 4 people. immediately when you send the email, you immediately find stuff in your script that's stupid. I replaced a word and spelled it wrong. I forgot to take one of my character names, which was a placeholder stupid name for the character, and find a better name for him and replace that. I later reread the whole thing and realized I had said a piece of dialogue about 3 times. It should never be said more than maybe twice in the script, and has to be about 60 pages away from each other, not to feel cliche. So I made some big mistakes, in my opinion. They're having a good time with the script. They're like, yeah, I noticed some typos, and this is a little bit weak there. Not everyone found everything that I found, but that was the process. But I'm taking a week off, at least, from touching that script again, because I need to push the script away from my mind so I can come back in with fresh eyes, right? And, you come in with fresh eyes, and you come back in with embarrassing eyes. Oh my God, I made that stupid mistake, right? The last 10% is very key. You have your fun 40. I don't really have a funny name for the next 50, but the 50 is where you really engage in and get down to business. And then you have your last 10%. And the last 10% is split into 2 pieces. It's a 9% chunk and a 1% chunk. This is where you really find out what you're made out of. And as long as you can take my definition of failure and adopt it and saying, as long as I wake up as long as I don't actually walk away from the project, forget about what you do day to day. As long as you never walk away from the project, you haven't failed whatsoever. And I want to say that failure really isn't part of the game. It's really not a word you want to use. If anything, you succeeded that you realize that maybe this particular talent isn't for you. But here's the thing. I'll finish the last 10, and then we'll go back to this algorithm I want you to realize. And it's in some of my other episodes on being creative, and especially my creative one, but I'll repeat it here because it has to do with perseverance as well, right? But that last 9%, okay, is where you have to manifest as much as you possibly can the talent of perfectionism. You need to come back and look at your thing with fresh eyes constantly and to see, if I didn't know anything about this project, would I understand its purpose, its function, and would I find its value in my life? Whether it be a painting on the wall, a piece of software you're developing, any service or product you're creating, right, with your talents. If you're writing a story, who would want to read your story? Who would want to see your film? You got to answer all those questions, hopefully as early as possible in your Fun 40. But you're really going to find it, whether or not, you're basically going to throw a javelin over a bush. And here's an analogy for you. You can look over the bush and see where the target is. But when you throw it, it's an educated guess to get it over there and hit that target. But when you look over and see where your javelin went, you're either close or you're not close. So you got to come back over and adjust your throw. And you can always throw a new one every single day to hit that target. And you're going to study your body. You're going to study the way that you're throwing it. When I threw it this way, it wonked out, went off to the right. When this wonked out to the left. This one seems to keep it right down the middle. But man, I'm really sore right here, so maybe I need to get my muscles stronger so I can throw the thing straighter and longer, because it's straight, but it's 10 feet away from the target. I need that extra 10 foot of muscle, right? Well, it's that last 9% that is the last minute fine-tuning or course tuning to your objective that's going to get you to where you need to be, to get you to the goal you're actually looking for, right? I call it the last 1% separately. And this is really derived from the video game industry when we create video games, right? It's really fun to think about a video game existing. It's a really tough thing to orchestrate it all together and find your resources in the 50%. And the last 9% is everyone staying up late, people getting angry at each other and saying things that they would never say in a normal state of mind. And you have to be able to reset after the whole event's over and shake hands or give hugs out, because you were all delirious and trying to get this thing done. You're all going for the same goal, but who knows? Who knows what happens? I've seen everything happen in the video game industry, besides someone murdering somebody, right? I've definitely seen the threat of murder once. But the last 1% is where you're sort of, you're so high on adrenaline and usually dopamine, crazy, delusionary time frames that you're crunching, and it's sort of like you got to get it out the door. You got to push out what you have at this particular interval in your life. If you're creating an amazing sketch, you're going to go up to that point. And it's not going to be as dramatic for small things, of course, but this is the bigger projects I'm talking about. If you can just dial back what I'm saying to your smaller projects, you'll find that the little things are much, much easier, right? You'll find it's stressless. The reason why you have this hobby or skill is because it is not stressful. It is the thing that makes you happy in life, right? But that last 1% is all about sort of being drunk in the moment. You'll start seeing the vision again of what you saw when you were in the first Fun 40. And I'll tell you what, you'll get super duper excited. When I finish my script after a couple of years of designing it and 4 months of writing the thing and pushing people out of my life to make sure I had the time to write stuff, and they're always, your closest friends will understand, and even some of your closest friends will be like, he doesn't want to be with me, but it's not the case. It's just what you got to do to get it done, right? I wanted to send the script to everybody, especially to some very intense people. I haven't sent it to my mentor yet because he's like, do not send me the first version. And I'm like, yeah. I learned that lesson a long time ago with him, right? I sent him a pile once. But sending him that piece of crap script made me think, wow, there's no way I'm going to risk this again. So I'm going to put it to everyone else first, And sure enough, as soon as I sent it out to my first 4, I was like, yep, that was a big mistake that I shipped out to everybody. I'll never get those people back. I should have sent out maybe 2 copies, But, 4 is good because you get a bunch of different perspectives. And some people, it's an existing franchise that people have to be familiar with in order to really get it. But regardless. Now, let's go back to the process that's going to be happening in your 50%. And this process is going to happen over and over and over throughout the course of your projects, right? And it goes something like this. When you start out, it is euphoric. And there's almost no difficulty whatsoever. In fact, it's the antithesis of difficulty. It's exciting, it's invigorating, and it gives you a purpose in life, right? And you've bumped into these people all throughout your life. There's people that have made it and some people that have quit. Once you start executing, usually regardless of how talented you are, there's a slight increase in difficulty. And if you plot this on a line chart, it's going to start going up, like up a hill, right? Depending on if this is your first time. And if it's, if you already have a massive skill, your chances of getting this far in this video are negligible, right? You're listening to me because maybe you have a dream that no one's really giving you any advice on, right? And hopefully this is valuable to you. So if you're like most of us going into a thing for the very first time, that difficulty may go up really, 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 really steep very, very quickly. And you find yourself a little bit overwhelmed, but you're so excited. You're taking your dopamine and your adrenaline and you're spending it as almost like food credits to getting over this hump, right? I totally suggest you do that. But there's a point where a lot of people without mentorship, like the stuff I'm giving you right now, they think that once it hits this certain level of difficulty, and what I would say is that what I've experienced is it plateaus off. It actually turns into a flat plateau, but it's really, really high on the difficulty scale. When it plateaus, you get up every day and you're a little bit kind of like defeated. You're like, damn, this is so hard. I don't even know how I'm going to fix this problem. I don't know how I'm going to get this code written or this script finished or how to get my painting to really pop. I create the souffle and it always sinks, whatever it is, right? A lot of people think that that's the sign that they should stop. That God himself is coming down and saying, see, it's so difficult, you should quit. Go off and do something easy in life because life pitches easy short-term things now, right? We're going to get that as the bumper at the end of this thing. But the people that you see on TV, the people that you know in the world that have been extremely successful in their lives have done one thing different at that plateau than most people do. They keep going. I'm going to suggest to you that the most talented people and the most successful people in life have transposed that defeatist feeling at the plateau, and they have transformed that into, I'm almost there. I'm almost there. This is it. This is the exciting moment where it doesn't get any worse than this plateau because the difficulties level off. It's not getting any more difficult. It's leveling off, right? And you may have little exceptions to the rule where you want to ratchet up the quality even further than you are, so you haven't really met your plateau, but at some point it plateaus. And the second you accept that that's the sign of success, that is the bend in the old mining shaft where you turn the corner and you start seeing a light shining down the shaft where you can escape. You can escape the peril of this journey. That is the point. It doesn't get any worse than that. It's like the old analogy they said, the one place you can bounce up is when you're rock bottom, right? As soon as you bottom out in life and you feel like committing suicide or you just think the whole world's gone to hell, that's the lowest you can go. And so the beautiful thing is anything you do after that, well, it could just get better and better and better, right? Even if it's not great for the first few days after that, it's just going to get better. Well, the inverse is correct when you're in a project. When it's at the worst, it can be at the top of difficulty. It starts to slope down, and you usually find the solutions as long as you keep communing with the universe, right? My creativity episode talks about communicating with the universe. So if that little sentence appeals to you, please go off and watch the creativity episode. I think it's in the early 20s or something. But here's the thing. Once you stick to it within that plateau, there's an amazing moment, and it happens with everyone I've ever seen. Okay? It doesn't mean that fatigue won't kick your ass and there won't be more obstacles and surprises along the way that you have to circumvent and get over and defeat. But what ends up happening is you fall down this slope of difficulty. There's this amazing drop-off point where you have done everything at least once, if not twice, if not 3 times in the course of this project, and everything just goes whoosh, like a roller coaster coming off the top. You come screaming back down to, wow, this is really easy, and you start to get the euphoric feeling. You know what deja vu feels like? You think you've been there before? Well, what will happen is you get talent deja vu, where you're like, wow, I'm reusing things that I've already learned. When I was going up that slope, it was really difficult, and I sustained during the plateau. When you come down the curve of difficulty, you start to feel like, oh my God, I'm just repeating what I already know how to do, and I'm fixing all these problems, and I'm buttoning up all these features, or whatever the hell you're making, right? Now again, you're 9 and 1%, your last 10%'s down there at the bottom. And that's more of a psychological endurance exercise, not necessarily, a talent problem. So it's just perseverance to cross all the T's and dot all the I's in that last 10% to really polish the thing out. Now I'm going to tell you a little trick. It doesn't matter what you're doing in life. This will make your projects a little bit better. Okay? Whenever you think you're finished, pat yourself on the back for damn sure. All right? And allow others to pat you on the back as well. Then step away from the project, and unless you have a deadline where you have to deliver the project and get it out the door. And hopefully we're talking about inceptional projects, and so you don't really have a super tight deadline. Walk away for, I would say, depending on your time frame it took you to create it, try to walk away 10% of whatever it took you to make the project happen. So if you spend 1 week painting, 7 days, give yourself about a couple days afterwards, just to average it up, where you walk away from your painting and you come back and take a look at it with fresh eyes and try to see if there's any little polish you can do to make it pop a little bit more. Hell, walk away for a week if you can do it. If it's a really low amount of, if it's only 7 days, try to walk away for 7 days and come back. Hell, walk away for 2 weeks. Whatever you can do, come back to it a little bit later and see if there's anything that occurs to you that you can polish it up. When I write films, what I do is I walk away from it for sure, for a week at least, if not 2 weeks. And I come back to it and I say, what if this film got made exactly the way I wrote it? And I watched it 10 years later in my living room off some streaming service. What part of me is going to be really embarrassed that I didn't think of the next thing that could have happened in the script? You know, where am I going to feel like the dialogue sucked? Not that I would ever get the last rights on a dialogue, but where could I have made it better? Where am I embarrassed? And then I go back in the script and I rewrite it. And man, my energy flow is so intense because it's not being released as a piece of crap. It's not being distributed to Hollywood as a piece of crap. I'm actually getting a chance to make this change before anyone else actually sees it. So try to do that to your projects as well. Okay. Now let's talk about, before we cut this off, what part of society breeds you against creativity and talent? Well, I think the first thing that happens is that you're in a consumer market. You're in what George Carlin called a mall nation. Every single thing that you need in the world is supposed to be purchased off a shelf. And so if you want a painting, you buy a painting. If you want a movie, you go watch someone else's movie. If you want some music, you buy someone else's music. You have been bred to be a consumer. And what I call that is the audience member. You're not bred to be on stage. You're bred to be in the audience looking up at the stage. And then you're supposed to have this critical opinion about everything that happens on stage. And so the more you hate things, instead of motivating you to get on stage and do it right, it gives you the sense of superiority. And I'm not saying any of you do this, but you see it happen all the time. The critics are always out pissing on everything, and they don't have the talent to do it right themselves. But they always have the, armchair general, Monday morning quarterback, analysis of everything, right? You have to defeat in yourself anything that's going to give you that short-term trigger in your mind. And what do I mean by that specifically? I mean that you need to look at your life from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed, look at Monday through Friday different than you look through Saturday through Sunday, and anytime you find yourself engaging in short-term reward systems, be very aware that they're short-term reward systems. Classify them in your mind as a short-term temporary mechanism to satiate yourself, that is not what you want to actually gear your life to function like. You can't afford to let those things be the dominant pattern of your behavior, because if you do, getting a talent is going to be really, really difficult. For any of you who picked up a guitar in your lifetime or played a piano or whatever, you have this grand vision of being whatever great guitar player, piano player you want to be, and it's hard. Again, it depends on your natural programming, but I don't think most of us have natural anything. You have to work your ass off to learn how to do it. And you're going to play crap that's crap. And you're going to have a hard time reading sheet music. You're going to try to whip out a solo in your first week, copying some solo that already exists. And you're going to get close, but you're not going to quite make it there on the first day. You're Edison at that point. Okay? I guarantee you, the more you do something, the more talented you'll get at it, no matter what. If you're finding one particular skill/talent really difficult, go get a separate skill that's probably pretty, I would say, opposite the one that you're trying to get. So if you're trying to learn a guitar and that's kicking your butt, well, get something artistic on the other side. Something where you just grab a pen and draw on a piece of paper. Something like that, right? Or you're writing, you're typing a story. Get a few of these things swirling in your life at once, and you'll have a blast going on what's called the round robin, right? Most of us clean our houses by going in a circle constantly, right? And you're just picking up a little bit of laundry, you're cleaning, you're doing the trash, you're a little bit of vacuuming in one room, and just keep going until there's nothing else left. Most of us don't go in the bedroom, totally clean it up, and then go in the next room, totally clean. If you can do that, then good luck. I mean, hats off to you. You have a talent that I don't have personally. But I run my talents exactly the same way. I go in circles. It also adds dimension to you, right? Once you write a script and you're controlling the emotional tension and release of a story, and then you play a guitar or any instrument, you know that what you're doing in the verse structure is voice leading. You're creating tension and release. They're all connected. When you make a 5-course meal, you're taking the human palate of a human being, and you're starting them off in a savory, usually light savory palate, the saltier flavors. Maybe you're serving a drink that accents the early dishes, and then towards the end you round it all off with the dessert and some port wine, and you've given the spectrum of taste experience a full experience through this 3 to 5 course meal. It's fun, it's exciting, it makes you more interesting as a human being. I would say that one of the talents we all need is to learn history, the way it actually occurred. It'll start to give you perspective of what is new and what isn't new. Maybe history is not 300 years away. Maybe history is the last 20 years of your life. Remember, when you write music, you can't just write anything. You got to look at what's sold and what's sold for the last 15 years and what everyone's tired of, and you have to write something different than that because no one wants to buy the old style of music. When you write a film or a book, you've got to write something out of the pocket of today to make it interesting and exciting. It's just a subtextual adventure to whatever adventure is the talent you're going to do, right? So again, there is really no failure. There really isn't. Even if you walk away from something because you know it's not something you're interested in, that's a piece of knowledge that you have now that you didn't have before. Same thing goes for finding a new talent. That's why you want to have 2 or 3 of these things. For those of you with kids, I beg of you, this is the way to get kids into talents. You surround them with all the tools to do anything that they want to do, and then you do one thing. Don't tell them to do anything with it. Chances are, if you have a talent, you have a very slim chance your child will want to do what you're doing. But they're going to want to break the mold by using all the other things that are surrounding them, right? Do teach them. Teach them anything you possibly can about talent, but just sort of teach them like, yeah, this is how this works. Or ask them the question, well, do you know how that works? Well, I can just show you real quick, blah, blah, blah. And then you walk away from it as if you don't give a crap about it. And your kid will be like, ooh, look in the pen, da-da-da-da-da, paintbrush. We have a viewer that's doing claymation stuff right now. It doesn't get more awesome than that. That's awesome. That is freaking awesome. I can't wait to see this stuff. I've seen one before, but he's doing all kinds of creative stuff. And I'm just telling you, man, it's just like an odyssey to watch. And he surprises me all the time, so I get to see this crazy stuff, right? Every one of you has a boatload of talent. Not just one, but a boatload of talent. Remember what I said at the beginning of this episode. You're on this planet Earth because you had skills to survive. And chances are, I can 99.9% sure that most of you have artistic skills as well. They may have gone dormant in this mall consumerism, conspicuous consumption society that we've had for the last 30 years. Reach into the bowels of your genes and your heart and find them and turn them back on. And it doesn't matter how old you are, whether you're young or old. Any day of the year is the perfect day to start this kind of stuff. I lived in a little tiny town in Kansas with 10,000 people on a good day. And I saw people of all ages killing things. And quite frankly, there are certain skills you don't even want to get into until you're older, right? Carving wood is an old man sport, which is awesome, meticulous. Your whole brain is calmed down, your metabolism's calmed down, your patience to sit there with a piece of wood and just kind of chip on it is good. And you're less concerned about failure when you're older. You're like, yeah, screw it. This didn't turn out the way I wanted to. And you put that on the shelf, you grab another piece of wood, and you start over again. And it's exciting when you're older. It's interesting. When you're younger, you're just full of cocaine energy, right? I don't mean the drug. I just mean your natural metabolism's kicking ass and taking names. You're converting sugar into energy like crazy. Use that metabolism that you've got to kill it, right? We're also living a lot longer. If you get the fluoride out of your brain, your sentient creativity, connection to the universe will be super duper strong. If you've been brushing with fluoride and drinking the crap your whole life, give yourself about 1.5 years to gain sentient thought. Get all the diet drinks out of your life. Get microwaves out of your life. Don't get shots, ever, because there's aluminum and mercury in them. It rots your brain. Eat non-GMO foods. Stay healthy. Your brain will catch up with your body. Your consciousness will reach deeper into the universe. And whenever you need the answers to solve problems, you'll actually have the faculty to do it. I know you feel me. That's where it's ending right there. If you haven't been already, go to mkultraradio.com. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. If you haven't liked, like. I'm just going to run you out real quick today. Take care of yourself and somebody else. Go do something creative, and we'll see you in the next episode. Over now.